Edition of It's a Sports Show, as always, Scott Cray, alongside me, Dolphin Paul. Are you okay being called that today, or should you just be called Paul the day after? How many phone calls did you get on Friday morning before, say, 9 o'clock? Because I know I was one of them.
By 9 o'clock, I took more abuse than a new recruit at Paris Island, South Carolina.
Oh, that's pretty bad.
Everybody was calling me. I thought the world was over.
Yep. This is going to be the first show in quite some time. All right, this is going to be record-setting show here. We are not going to talk about the Boston Red Sox, because frankly, all we've talked about them over the past 2 weeks is negative, and now we have really nothing to say.
Well, there's no need to.
No,
well, actually, we can say a little something about them. The 10.5 behind the Yankees.
And that's with the Yankees losing a lot of games.
With about 20 games to go or so. So, unfortunately for the Red Sox this year, it's over.
It's over. But you want to talk about the AFC East, so where do you want to go with
last week we had an NFC preview,
Yep.
And we couldn't really get to the AFC because our previews are so in-depth that we took up all the time.
Right.
So in conjunction with the results of the game, we can get to our kind of an AFC preview, although one game's already gone. And
we can still preview it and pick our teams.
Absolutely.
It's only one game down. Anything
only one
can
game
happen.
down, but the football season started. Everybody's excited, all the junkies, fantasy. By the way, we get a lot of emails. Listen, we are both in fantasy leagues. Anybody want to send us emails regarding fantasy football? We'd love to have them. We'll go over it with him.
I'm off to 1-0 in both my football leagues.
I'm 0-1. We'll get to that later, but I had a
Shouldn't have
tough
taken
loss.
the whole Miami team, would you?
No, actually, I don't like to take anybody from Miami, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are the ones that buried me. And hey, let's start with the Dolphins and Steelers played on Thursday night.
Yeah. First game of the NFL season. They could have picked two.
NBC, which we'll get to that probably after. I thought it was a terrible broadcast. But
we got NBC, and then we got ESPN picking up on the Monday night game.
Yeah, I mean,
2 games.
we can even start there. John Madden, I just think he lost a lot off his fastball. There's things that happen on the field they don't talk about.
Right.
I thought the whole broadcast in itself, the replays and everything, like there's a couple plays where the guy looked like he was going to drop the ball. They'd either cut the commercial, or then we'd come back from commercial. They'd show a replay from 2 commercials ago.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't a good flow to me as far as NBC and their inaugural game there.
Well, people have been saying that about Madden over, the course of time, and he just kind of babbles about nothing after a while.
At first it was...
As you can see, the gravy is leaking down the mashed potatoes.
Well, he'd make a lot of great points, but now it seems like that's all he's interested in talking about. But
right.
Anyway, on the field, Charlie Batch was in for Roethlisberger.
And no one expected much.
And nobody expected much. I told you last week that the Steelers are still defending champs. Great defensive football team, can still run the ball.
Bill Cowher will keep them in it right till the end.
Miami played pretty tough. With 5 minutes to go, they had a chance to get a first down. They were up by 3 or 4.
Yep.
They could have got a first down and at least got a field goal or killed another 2 minutes. It would have been down to about 3 minutes. And they end up imploding in the last 4 or 5 minutes and losing by 10, including a controversial Heath Miller 83-yard score, which, by the way, killed my fantasy game.
Yep.
Stepped out of bounds, and for some reason, Nick Saban...
what's the deal there?
Well, listen, I'll criticize the Miami coaching
staff. You need to work on his bicep curls a little?
I don't know if it's the Miami coaching staff or the people up in... or the replays, because we were kind of getting the replays late. There was a couple plays before that in the first half and early second that I thought a flag should have been thrown.
Right.
And it's like nothing seemed to happen. So I don't know if it was miscommunication.
Well, I mean, isn't Saban ideally the man that's in charge of making that call?
Well, he is, but he's got to get it from upstairs.
Right.
If you're the head coach, I'm upstairs going, hey, challenge it. That doesn't look like a catch. Obviously, on the field, Saban's not going to look at the scoreboard and determine from there.
Right.
He has to get the input from his staff. That's why I'm saying, I don't know if it's a staff or I don't know if the staff's not getting the replays in times. But that was kind of odd, and I do blame Saban for that soft...
Yeah, what was going on there?
Field goal.
For a football field, man, that was kind of a gay throw, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that he was happy when he threw it.
Sure you don't. We know you.
I don't mean he was happy when he threw it either. I mean, and you, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can. They cannot replay when the flag was thrown.
Belichick said, and he was right. I would have hit him. Yeah, you can. You run out on that field when you want to stop it.
Do what you got to do.
On that field. I mean, it's not a penalty because you're not going to assault the referee or anything.
Right.
You throw the flag. If the guy has his back to you, I mean, you can't throw behind him and go, hey, hello.
Well, it didn't look like verbally he was doing a whole heck of a lot when he threw it.
Yeah, he didn't say much. He's like, oh, nobody saw it. It's not my fault. But
think he was hesitant or just hasn't learned how to throw the red
very
flag.
hesitant. He kind of just threw it like,
Maybe he was
maybe
iffy
I'll
about it
challenge
anyway.
Maybe I won't. Anyway, Heath Miller, of course, scored the touchdown there. And, they would have been on the 1 yard line, but still,
Right.
you don't give up points. And Culpepper came back, forced into a passing situation, and he gave up a couple picks at the end. So he had somewhat of a rough first game there, and the Dolphins go down 0-1.
Yep, they lose 28-17. Culpepper, 18 for 37, 262. Not a bad start. Culpepper, no, that was Batch that did that, right?
Batch had a pretty good game. He did exactly what he had to do. But
Right.
again, this is, I don't want to make excuses for Miami. They're still the defending champs. I try to tell people that. And to be honest with you, I know you're going to think this is Miami hearsay.
Yeah, it probably is.
But, well, no, I told my friend, I think this loss could be one of the best things that happened to him because all the hype coming into the preseason, you lose against a Pittsburgh team, and now there's a little bit of a sense of urgency, and you play Buffalo next week, which, ironically, is a more important game because it's within your division.
Right.
So, hey, they had a rough
games you have
start,
to
but I
win.
still think they're going to be a very good football team, and we'll talk about that as we move along.
Okay.
Let's get to the local team, AFC East. We can do a little roundup there. The New England Patriots,
Yes.
who were in quite a tussle with the, supposedly undermanned or under-talented, underqualified Buffalo Bills, if you will, who went into Foxborough and came very close in pulling up a big upset.
Well, you look at the score at halftime and look at how the Patriots played, and Maroney was probably the only good thing to come out of that. His first two runs of his NFL career end up being for something like 52 yards total for the first two. He ends up going 86 yards on the day. They used him. They loved him. Dillon did his job too, but it wasn't until the second half that they picked things up. The turnover battle, that's what helped the Patriots win in the end. And at the beginning, that's what caused the Patriots to start from behind. 12 seconds into the season, the Patriots are already down 7-0 because of a turnover. And you can't do that.
I was on your way back from a fateful trip to Atlantic City on a bus. I was checking.
Fateful?
This is bad. So I'm catching the scores on my cell phone. But from what I understand, Buffalo had a chance to stretch their lead, and they had a 4th down, and I believe 1.5 on the New England 7.
Yep.
And Dick Duran went for it instead of kicked the field goal, making it a 20-7 game.
Right.
And from that point on, I guess New England, they did a good job at halftime, 17-7. They came out, adjusted, and shut Buffalo down, and won 19-17 on a safety.
The safety wins it all in the end.
Right, but the big question in this game is, as we all know, we tape on Tuesday, Monday afternoon, Deion Branch was traded. Which we spoke about last week, traded to
Seattle.
Seattle Seahawks.
Good riddance.
Got the money he wanted, $13 million guaranteed.
I smell a fruit tree.
Well,
I smell a fruit tree.
Here's the problem, though. Tom Brady went 11-23 for 163 yards, so you can smell a fruit tree and say Branch was under contract and all that, but this team might have some problems with the passing game. They're definitely going to have to rely on Corey Dillon and Lawrence Maroney to carry the load, because if you're a defense, it's Doug Gabriel and Troy Brown, with all due respect, who's had a pretty good career.
Yep.
Is at the twilight of his career.
Right.
Those guys really going to scare you?
Well, the problem is...
On the outside, Rashae Caldwell?
Yeah, I know they have problems now receiving with Branch gone, but did you certainly expect the Patriots to reward Branch with a higher contract, even though he was already under contract, just because he says he deserves it? And rightfully so he does, but heck, you're under contract, man.
No, there's no doubt. The bottom line, it's a business decision, and I guess, and we talked about this last week, it was too far gone where,
right.
In a negotiation, when you start getting past the point of cordial, if you will.
It just wasn't happening.
Right, when they told him he could seek a trade, he did. He kind of called their bluff, and, from a financial point of view, obviously, they got a number 1 pick. You never know how that's going to pan out. I hate to ride the fence. I can see both sides of the equation on this, but from a New England point of view, I think it's a mistake, because you're not giving Tom Brady the weapons he needs. This guy is probably the best quarterback in the NFL, and you are giving him Doug Gabriel, Troy Brown, Rashae Caldwell, and Ben Watson. Hey, Ben Watson's a good tight end. Daniel Graham's a pretty good tight end. I think Watson's a better, more athletic pass-catching tight end.
Right.
But if you're a defense, they know that. So they're going to stack that line.
And they know you're going to run it.
They stack that line and jump on the run as much as they can,
right.
Watch the tight end, and say,
left?
Listen, we got our 2 corners. You don't have to have shutdown corners.
How about in typical New England fashion, somebody steps up or 2 players step up out of the blue, because the Patriots just seem to know how to get guys to step into the system like that?
That's been happening.
Or, let's not forget, I know there aren't any real receivers available, so to speak, but you never know if they could end up flipping that first-round pick to another team to get a wide receiver back here.
Whether they get somebody else or not, it's a whole different story. But as it's constituted right now, I think the Patriots are going to struggle offensively, at least passing the ball. Now, they've proved this wrong before.
Right.
And certainly I'm not a Patriot fan, but you got to wonder. I mean, again, you got one of the best passers in the league.
Yep.
And, it's like having one of the best chefs, and you're not giving him the groceries, like our old friend Parcell said.
Oh, I hear you.
So, I mean, right now, I think this is a mistake on the Patriots' part, although financially, I could see the situation. It's too bad it came to this.
They got a party going on
But
here?
I think they do
This
got a party.
is unbelievable. You guys shut up for a second.
You think
Trying
they'd
to
be
do a
watching our
sports
show
here, and then later we say, "Oh, well, we said that."
It's
you
a
did?
sports show.
Gotta soundproof
Jeez.
that glass, soundproof
Absolutely.
the walls. Do you want to? We've talked about the Pats in Miami. You want to go over the rest of the AFC by division?
Let's go to real quick because let's do the AFC East. We know that Buffalo lost to New England.
Yep.
We know how New England played
Dolphins
against Buffalo,
lost.
but now New England goes to the Jets, which is a nice segue.
Right.
A communication segue.
Good job on that.
Segue, you like that
No.
segue?
That's
But
a sign
they
for
played
segue.
Jets. Eric Mangini had a pretty good first game going into Tennessee and beating the Titans. So now New England Belichick goes to Mangini. Kind of an interesting game. They're both 1-0, and obviously both of those guys going to lose. And just getting back to Miami real quick, Buffalo goes to Miami.
Right. Buffalo's got a tough schedule.
Well, both of those teams are 0-1. Yeah,
Right.
Buffalo got kind of shafted. They're going to New England and Miami. So AFC will shake up a little bit more. So
Somebody's going to come out 2-0, and somebody's going to come out 0-2.
AFC East, we got to pick them. Who do you like to win this division?
Well, I mean, I got to go with the Patriots.
Okay.
It still seems like the obvious.
Hold on a second.
Till somebody in the East can knock them over.
My rose-colored glasses. Oh, yeah, the
Now
Dolphins will win this division. No doubt about it.
Come on, you've lost your mind. Well, there's one division winner you're going to lose.
Let's move on to the AFC
where do you want to
South,
go?
I guess.
South, that works for
AFC
me.
South, the Indianapolis
Manning
Colts.
versus Manning.
Yep.
My personal opinion, glad the hype is over. Because
Yeah, you get a little tired of
I
hearing
think
it.
you mentioned that last week, too, that it's just like, all right, the brother thing is done with. Let's thank God that they don't play in the same division.
And the older Manning right now got the best of the younger Manning. I mean,
Of course.
I just
What
think
did you
they're
expect?
they're simply slightly more talented. The Giants are a pretty good football team, but
More defensively, though.
probably more defensively, although they have some weapons with Tiki Barber, Plaxico Burress, who made some great catches.
Right.
They got, what's his name there, Shockey, who's pretty good. I just think Eli needs a little more seasoning. They made a couple mistakes there right at the end with a couple minutes to go.
Yeah.
Including Shockey, who should have went out of bounds with under a minute to go.
Well, he doesn't
I
have
mean, it was
his
a
head
pretty
screwed
good
on
football
straight
game,
anyway.
and the Colts came out on top, as we thought they would. I was somewhat impressed with the Colts' defense. I mean, they're not as bad as past years, but again, no Edgerrin James.
Well, they
I
were
think it makes a
decent
big
last
difference.
year, and their defense was the key last year because that's where they had been hurting all along. Last year, the defense stepped up. However, then they traded or lost some of that defense, and you already mentioned they lost edge, and let's not forget Vanderjagt gone.
Van der Jerk. I'm glad you mentioned it. How weird was it? And these Patriot fans will know.
Yep.
I, as you know, came home from Atlantic City, caught like the last 5 minutes of the game. How weird was it to see Vinatieri come out with that coat? It felt weird to me, and I'm not a Patriot fan. Did you? Did you
Oh, yeah,
get that same
absolutely.
impression? You see him come out with the coat on it, just like, whoa, what's going on here? I thought that was kind of funny.
The Colts will take that division, although they're not going to be the same Colts of old, in my opinion. They're going to go back to the offensive juggernaut they were. But without edge, now it's just
That's
a passing
in this
game.
tight games, it's going to be tough. Just like we talked about the Patriots not being able to pass the ball.
Right.
This is opposite. Now you kind of don't respect the running game, and you clamp down on the routes.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how they manage without.
As bad as the Colts may end up being, and it won't be that bad, but you got Jacksonville, Tennessee, and Houston in that division.
Jacksonville's a good football team. They had a tough game with our old friend Drew Bledsoe. Hey, don't sell Jacksonville short. I think they're going to be in it right to the end. And
it's all about their starters, not getting Leftwich and is it Freddie Taylor?
Freddie Taylor.
If they can stay healthy, then it's a possibility.
That's a good point. They got a good coach, a terrific defense. So, that remains to be seen. I'm also going to be with you. I'm going to take the Colts in this division just because of who they have. But I think Jacksonville's going to be a lot closer than people think.
Maybe.
How about the
AFC
next
West?
two juggernauts in that division? You don't even want to make. You want to skip them?
You want to talk about Tennessee and Houston? All right.
Houston,
Tennessee made some moves, so they might be worth talking.
Yeah, but they got crushed by the Jets at home, so that kind of. I mean, their quarterback situation. They got rid of McNair. Kerry Collins came in, looked horrible. Of course, he's only been here 2 weeks.
Right.
Vince Young came in, and so they're kind of in a semi-rebuilding mode. So they're going to struggle for most of the year. Houston, at home against Philly.
It can't be any worse than last year. What did they win?
Well,
2 games
at
last
home
year?
against Philly. Philly came in and played a great football game after the first quarter. And Houston fans, it must be frustrating. I mean, you seem to have some pieces. They got Eric Moulds and still got Andre Johnson. Passed on Reggie Bush. Big mistake. We talked about it.
Imagine that.
Mario Williams had an okay game.
All of a sudden, that's where they have to fill. All of a sudden. You know what I mean?
Bush looked good this weekend. That's all I can say.
Yeah, juggernauts, the Titans and Texans. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
AFC West?
Sure, we can go there.
The Broncos of Denver, Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, all in that division. This is the division to me that's always been kind of iffy over the past few years. You really never know who's going to step up in that division, and it could be kind of anyone's division to take as far as I'm concerned. I don't see anyone.
Oh, really?
Well,
I'd beg to differ.
I mean, other than maybe
I don't know.
Oakland.
I think Oakland doesn't have a shot, and you know what, to win that division after watching them Monday night play the San Diego Chargers, who had a new QB. They still got LT, who had a terrific game.
Right.
But their defense is solid. Now, I don't like Marty Schottenheimer. When a big game comes, I'll bet against him every time. But that's a pretty good football team. On the other hand, Oakland, a mess.
Right.
Aaron Brooks, terrible. The people say, Culpepper was great because of Moss. Well, Moss hasn't made anybody else good, I'll tell you that.
No, because, I mean, that's all they're covering. That's all they
Aaron
have
Brooks
to
is
worry
terrible.
about.
They couldn't run the ball. They got shut down. They got Art Shell, the coach who been there, done that. So
Now, he started what, last year?
No, this is his first year.
This is his first year.
Yeah, this is his
so
first year.
you gotta wonder how much of an effect he'll have on this football team. I mean,
supposedly it was
coaching
a
alone.
common effect, discipline effect. That team, a few more games like that at home with those crazy fans, and that whole situation will blow
Well, I
up.
just don't see anybody else. I mean, I know Denver's been pretty good the last few years, but I just don't see anybody in that division being overpowering.
Well, I mean, again, this is the first week. We don't want to go crazy here because, as we know, a few years ago, Patriots got shelled 31-0 at Buffalo and went on to win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
However, just our first week observations, Denver went into St. Louis, a team who wasn't touted to be very good. They lost.
Yep.
Kansas City, who I said, I don't like Herm Edwards. I don't see the infatuation with giving up draft picks to get that coach. Hello, we play to win the game.
Look what happened.
I had Cincinnati on the Friday afternoon handicappers corner on 790 to score.
Yep.
I said Cincinnati was one of my plays in Kansas City, which is a tough place to play. No offense.
Right.
Unfortunately, a little bit of that had to do with Trent Green getting shellacked.
That doesn't help.
That was one of the toughest hits I've seen. He's going to be out at least 2 weeks. That's a tougher concussion. So right now, it's a good thing we didn't pick last week.
I know.
I think it's going to come down to Denver and San Diego.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make a prediction. If Phillip Rivers can play within himself and not lose games, I think San Diego could win this division. Jake Plummer, a lot of heat on him. They drafted Jay Cutler.
Yep.
And Plummer threw 3 interceptions. Watch that situation. That could be very interesting.
I'm taking Denver just because they've been the most consistent team over the past few years, and they're always the tough team to beat at home all the time.
Mile high, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Who did we miss?
Well, we AFC North. We got Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. I'm just following your lead.
Well, who do you think I like in the North?
Let me see if you got more than one team in that division. I think you only got one in that division.
Yeah, right?
Hey, the Bengals went into what we spoke about, Kansas City.
Yep.
And Carlson Palmer doesn't look like he missed a beat. He's
not at all.
All the talk we had about him not being sure about his knee and acting like a baby. His first drive, I believe, he went 5 for 5, a touchdown. Still got Chad Johnson, Rudy Johnson.
The Johnson & Johnson
Marvin
connection.
Lewis on defense.
See, what I like about that team is they have the core. They have the quarterback, they have the running back, they have the wide receiver.
Big three.
And not a bad coach either. So, I mean, I could definitely see Cincy taking things in that division.
Well, they could. Pittsburgh, of course, are defending champs. We know Roethlisberger's coming back.
Yep.
Tough football team, all sides of the ball.
You got to wonder how Roethlisberger will feel coming back, not so much physically, but with all the emotion that went on during the offseason.
Yeah, we'll see how he comes back, but I think he'll be fine. Baltimore, with now a new leader, Steve McNair, went into Tampa, who some people talking about Tampa in the Super Bowl. I didn't see it with their offense. But Steve McNair now, and Ray Lewis is a little bit re-energized. If you saw some highlights of that game, went into Tampa and just shut them right down.
Right.
So you know what? I'm with you. I'm going to say Cincinnati. It's their time to come up. That's a very tough division, but I'm gonna go Cincinnati.
A lot of people are talking about Steve McNair like he's the next,
Yeah, but
Steve McNair. Do people forget just because you put on a different uniform doesn't mean that you're not going to be the same injured every week?
Yeah, but he's one of the toughest quarterbacks in the league. And let's not forget one thing though. Baltimore, they haven't had anybody.
Right.
So this is like a Miami situation when you get a QB.
Do you really consider Steve McNair somebody? I mean,
absolutely. He went to the Super Bowl. He's been a solid quarterback in the NFL.
Too long ago.
If he's not hurt, I think he's one of the toughest guys. Makes good reads.
He's hurt every week. That's the problem.
Well, until he gets hurt.
Unless it was just Tennessee loves to call every player hurt every week for the most part.
No, but he's played through a lot of injuries. So I think Baltimore is going to be pretty well balanced this year. I don't think they got enough to take the division. So
that's our picks between last
I'll go
week,
Cincinnati.
Last week and this week. That's it.
Yeah,
we went all the divisions, right?
Pretty much through all the divisions. Anything else catch your eye the first week of the season?
We were talking about a couple of things. The first Monday night game we had mentioned. Interesting enough, it was pretty close, and a 16-16 score is not something you expect to see going into late in the quarter. I'll tell you that it was refreshing to see a Monday night football game on a little earlier than 9 o'clock for a change, but that's not going to be long. I don't know what kind of things stuck out in your.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that game. That's one that stuck out. Minnesota, the new coach, of course, the former offensive coordinator of the Eagles,
in his rookie season,
going
as
to
a
Minnesota,
head coach.
Dealing with the Culpepper situation, dealing with the Love Boat situation, having a 38-year-old quarterback.
Right.
Went into a place. Washington Redskins, here's a team that if you're a Redskin fan, man, you're gonna be shaking your head.
Absolutely.
That little weasel Snyder has bought everybody. They've made every trade. Joe Gibbs is obviously a legendary coach, but I talked about this with a friend. It's so hard to recreate magic.
Yes.
And what I'm saying is, if Belichick left today and went to another team, chances are he wouldn't win 3 Super Bowls. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Jimmy Johnson came back. It's tough to duplicate the magic. Everything has to fall into place for you to have a great run as a team. You need some luck. You need some players, trades. When Jimmy Johnson traded Herschel Walker. So, Joe Gibbs coming back, everybody was pumped up, and certainly he's a good coach. But, I mean, offense just kind of sputters. They got Clinton Portis. Mark Brunell is getting up there in age. They drafted Ramsey a few years ago, then traded him to the Jets. They haven't been able to get going. So, for a team like Minnesota to go on the road and beat Washington, I think is a very good win for the Minnesota Vikings.
The rookie versus the veteran, and they pulled it off.
And I think it raises a lot of questions with the Washington Redskins.
Sure does. I mean, Brunell, 163 yards, that's just not going to do it on most football days for the most part. Anything else stick out to you? How much time we have left, guys?
Time?
7 minutes. Good golly.
Plenty of time. Well, yeah, well, we can talk about the upcoming games too, but a couple other things that kind of piqued my interest. Reggie Bush had well over 100 yards, all-purpose yards, so he's doing exactly what they brought him in for. He's catching the ball, running the ball. So, New Orleans went into Cleveland. Romeo Crennel, another ex-prodigy from Bill Belichick, really hasn't fared well so far. He's trying to make some moves, but, they got Charlie Fry, Reuben Drones. They really haven't been able to turn the corner, especially offensively. And Breeze went out there, played okay.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of a snoozer game, New Orleans and Cleveland. But
all eyes are
Reggie
on Bush, though.
All eyes are on Bush. My eyes
gotta
are
like
always
Bush,
on Bush.
right?
Absolutely.
You like Bush. So.
I'm not like Buddy Frank. I like Bush. But
ESPN.
Can you say that on Interconnect?
I don't know if they might cut us. We might be talking for nothing.
I don't even know if we're on yet. Those guys having a party there.
Yeah.
But
ESPN. Paulie. ESPN does its thing for Monday Night Football. Did you catch either Monday night game?
I didn't catch a lot of it because
did you get an impression at all?
I had a busy weekend. Came back from a company golf tournament, so.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, we talked about that last week with Kornheiser.
Right.
Although I don't want him to be a complete clown, it's kind of like they put the clamps on him. A
little too much.
Yeah, a little too much. You need like when they had Paul McGuire and Jesus, the name escapes me. He was one of the best play-by-play men. With Joe Theismann and I can see his face, Mike Patrick.
Okay.
I thought that was a good crew, and Paul would, every once in a while just interject a little humor. I'm not a big fan of it. I love Mike Tirico. I think anything he does is good.
Yeah. I think it'll only get better at this point because these guys
Could.
have to kind of mesh together.
There's an adjustment period. I mean, we don't know. Now, it used to be Monday Night Football and everything else. Now it's like Sunday Night Football America, and they play the Roman song.
Right.
Dun, 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 dun.
I thought it was kind of dull, the play-by-play. Well, not just the play-by-play, but the whole,
Your second game, I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you. I love football. Second game, I conked right out. I was so tired from a long weekend.
I was all
but
done.
Sunday Night Football.
I found it to be a little boring. Maybe I've been listening to Jerry and what's his face on the Red Sox network for too long, where they're actually entertaining. But these guys seemed a little boring. I did, however, you had to know that ESPN was going to make the face of football look differently somehow, and they did in a graphic nature. They did their little emblem or bug, if you will, at the bottom center, as opposed to the standard line you would see at the top. And I kind of like that because it had the look of a scoreboard like you would normally see at a basketball, a hockey, or even a football game. And I was kind of into that.
Yeah, I didn't really get close up and personal because I was out until then I came back from the second game and just.
Oh, what a shame.
Conquer. So I'll have to make my report next week on the programming.
That's it. And you need that second weekend anyway to kind of get a better idea.
Drew Bledsoe went back to his old self. We talked about that in Jacksonville.
Yep.
Threw some interception at the end. I think it's only a matter of time before T.O. blows up in that situation.
How about Kurt Warner? That's someone we haven't talked about. See if I can find the stat line on him.
Well, we talked about...
They tore apart the 49ers, who defensively has got to, again, be one of the worst defensive teams in the NFL. But you still got to do your job on Sunday, and he certainly did.
We talked about that earlier. I mean, Kurt Warner, if he remains healthy, has... imagine having Anquan Bolden, Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Edgerrin James.
Fitzgerald, a $133 for the day. Warner goes 23 for 37, 301 yards. And I think he threw for like 3 touchdowns, actually. It was 3. As a matter of we got small creatures around here. So Fitzgerald and Warner both doing their thing.
Absolutely. Kurt Warner could have a big year. I wish I drafted him. I drafted
He's my starting quarterback, 3 touchdowns, so I'm pretty happy with that. What did he say?
Must be hungry.
I'm telling you. 3 touchdowns. Let's talk a little fantasy.
Fantasy football, let's go.
Yeah. We got
Here's the theme of the first week. Where have all the number ones gone?
Yeah,
except for
good
LT.
point.
Sean Alexander,
nothing. And that's who I got in my first round pick. Paul French in there pushing all the buttons. I'm in his league and was psyched to have Sean Alexander. But I believe last year, if I'm not mistaken, I had him. And the first week, he rushed for something like 32 yards. So I'm sure fantasy people are smart enough to know you just hang on to Sean Alexander. You don't trade him. You don't do anything with him. He's Sean Alexander.
Let me tell you, last year I won the Super Bowl in my league.
Yep.
I believe it was about the third week I pulled the trigger on Peyton Manning for Sean Alexander. Ooh. I had Peyton Manning, and Alexander went wild for me and helped me win the Super Bowl. So, yeah, obviously, if you got a guy like that, you can't panic. You can't trade him the first week. You got to, in fantasy too, you got to kind of let the first 2-3 weeks play out and see what kind of team you have before you start.
And if you had the first, most likely you had the first pick if you have Sean Alexander. So
or in the top 2 or 3.
So you probably don't have a number 2 stud running back at that point because by the time it all came back to you again, what was available beyond the first 6 or 7 running backs? Who's your star? Mine is Alexander on that team.
I took Peyton Manning. And
first round?
I got Anquan Bolden and some decent receivers.
Yep.
Hushman Zada, who's your mama, who didn't play this week. So I had like a workman-like week, but my running backs are a little weak. I got Reuben Jones, I got Fred Taylor.
Taylor could be
Frank
decent.
Gore, who I told you, he had a decent day for me. So I have to kind of just struggle along and see. 30 seconds, I went quick. But
next week
send us
I'll
your
talk
email
about,
fantasies.
Absolutely. Kellen Winslow Jr., or maybe not even Jr.
Finally caught a touchdown.
The man to pick up. Believe me, he'll be on your free agent
wire.
We'll
pick up next week, week 2.
Yes. Any calls, emails rather, send them to us. It's a sports show at yahoo.com. Thanks to the entire crew for having their party next door and pushing buttons at the same time. It's a sports show. On behalf of Paul, I'm Scott. Thanks for watching.